have a theory why this CPU is acting up only 3 months later, and it all has to do with the fact that this is a Corsair pre-built.
And the reason why I say that is, you know how I mentioned about the Intel instability problems earlier? Well, technically that issue is patched through a microcode update that Intel rolled out with their motherboard manufacturers
that prevents the CPUs from frying themselves, and even adjusts settings to bring some of these CPUs back to life.
But here's the catch. That update had to be rolled out through a BIOS update.
And that's where Corsair comes into play, even though they're not a motherboard manufacturer.
And I almost completely missed this until I did some digging,
where I found out that this Asus Prime Z790-P Wi-Fi motherboard was on BIOS version 9046.
Okay, remember that number.
Because according to Corsair's official website, if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, that is the latest BIOS version that we can download. But if you look closely here, you'll notice that it says 0x12b microcode,
which is not the latest Intel microcode that's resolved all these issues.
As the one that actually resolved all these issues is 0x12f,
which came out around this May.
And that update is clearly not here.
So you're probably thinking, check the Asus website.
Well, of course, Asus has that website for their Prime Z790-P Wi-Fi motherboard, because on 5/21/2025, they have 0x12f. So if the update's right here, why don't we update it right now?
Well, we can't, and that's the problem.
Well, you remember how it was version 9046?
Well, if you look on Asus's website, their version scheme is completely different. It's 1820. And although that may not seem like a big deal,
this was a pretty good giveaway for me that if we download the latest version, put it on a flash drive, that we plug into this beast of a system and try to run the Asus Easy Flash utility, where we'll see that our file's right here. But if we try to attempt to read it, we'll actually get an error saying that the selected file was not a proper BIOS. How was that possible? Because we just got it from the Asus website. Well, it's all caused because Corsair on their pre-built gaming PCs doesn't use the factory BIOS. Rather, they use something called an OEM BIOS,
which is a custom modified version of the original BIOS
that sometimes pre-built manufacturers like to use because they can lock down certain features in the BIOS and set certain standards from the factory
to hopefully create a better end user experience
and stop the liability of people tweaking things. One of the examples that I know that they're actually doing is that for XMP, it's always enabled. Like if you disable it and save and exit, the system will take forever to restart, and you'll actually notice the power button freaks out, but when it finally comes back on, XMP is enabled again every time. You can never turn it off.
And I get it that they're trying to make the user experience for people buying pre-builts a lot easier,
which I'm all for, but it's now coming at the sacrifice where we can't update the BIOS to end up saving our CPU. And if you're curious, I did call Corsair to see if maybe I was missing something. To sum things up, basically what I was told was that their engineers were working on a new BIOS version, but in the meantime, there's really not much we can do.
Which, let me tell you, I love Corsair products,
but the fact that they don't have a BIOS update 5 months later is pathetic.